Thank you for watching Spirit of Aviation Week. Coming up on Stream 3 at 2:30, we'll chat with Lee Lauderback, the highest time Mustang pilot in the world, about flying and maintaining the world's most famous airplane, the P-51 Mustang. On Stream 1 at 3 o'clock, Ryan McBride presents Fundamentals of Flying with ForeFlight, including setup and navigation, weather, route building, and filing a flight plan. This program also qualifies for FAA Wings credit. On Stream 2 at 3:30, Concorde visits Oshkosh, a return visit to the Concorde's first appearance in Oshkosh in 1985. For a complete schedule of events, visit EAAtogether.org and check out the Oshkosh show specials and additional seminars from our exhibitors. Remember, all of our presentations are also available on demand.
Hey everybody, today for Spirit of Aviation Week content, we have a very special guest. A lot of you have seen him fly the P-51 Mustang at air shows and across Florida. The Mustang master himself coming to you from the cockpit of Crazy Horse, Lee Lauderback. Lee, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Kyle. How are you this morning?
Doing great. Yourself?
Doing fine. Wish I were up in Oshkosh, but hey, you know, maybe this will be a second best.
We all wish we could be at AirVenture this year and watch the Mustangs all fly like we do every year. So Lee, let's kick it off. A lot of folks know you from flying the Mustang and your Stallion 51 operation, but a lot of people don't know it's a family business. How did you and your brothers get started in aviation?
Well, Kyle, I sort of grew up around aviation. My dad was a naval aviator and actually flew the big flying boats, the PBY and the PPM, and North Africa. And so with 5 boys in the family, aviation was sort of a DNA kind of thing, you might say. And so as we grew up, you know, I built all the models, and it seemed like the Mustang was one of my favorites of building, you know, the plastic models. And then I got into the RC airplanes, and again, the Mustang was sort of dominant there. And then at 14, I watched a show that Disney did on flying gliders. And that sort of planted the seed. And I wanted to start flying gliders, and I did. So I started, actually my aviation career of flying was sailplanes and gliders at 14. And I had my parents' support, especially my dad, and then went on to Power and soloed on my 16th birthday, and just kept getting deeper and deeper into aviation. And it became a real passion that I wanted to make a career.
So you've had a really awesome story as a professional aviator yourself. So you got your private at 16, 17 years old, your private powered rating. And then how did you progress into flying professionally? Well,
very interesting. Through the progression of getting commercial and instrument multi-engine. And I was in high school athletics at the time and ended up getting a scholarship to Louisiana State University playing baseball. So I was playing varsity baseball, majoring in aeronautical engineering, but I found I wasn't flying airplanes anymore. And something near and dear to your heart, I went to Embry-Riddle with a buddy of mine, and he was going to go there, and I went just for the fun. And the counselor said, "Well, where do you go to school?" I said, "LSU. What are you majoring in?" And he made a comment. He said, "I can save you a year of college." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Yeah, I can save you a year of college because of your ratings in aeronautical science degree program." And I said, "Well, that's very interesting." And he said, "Hold on a minute." He makes a phone call and he said, "We're looking for instructors also." So I basically left athletics and a scholarship for going to Embry-Riddle as an instructor and majoring in aeronautical science and business management.
And as you know, Lee, both of us know, when you go to Embry-Riddle, you're fully immersed with airplanes and aviation, and it's truly kind of a one-of-a-kind place.
And I threw the department into that. In my spare time in the evenings, I would go and fly for the forestry department, which allowed me to build quite a few hours of flying time.
So how did you progress out of Embry-Riddle, Lee?
Well, I started flying some charter work and ran into who was one of my best friends now in the world, Charlie Johnson, who was flying for Arnold Palmer. And they needed a co-pilot for a Lear 24. And Charlie and I got together and really hit it off. And so I became a co-pilot for Arnold Palmer. By the way, here comes the Mustang. Gotta love the sound. So it turned out that Charlie went to work for Gates Learjet, and I became Arnold's chief pilot, and stayed with the boss for about the next 18 years, flying Lears, all the Citation aircraft and helicopters.
So we've been asking a lot of folks, Lee, about their first solo, but tell us about the first time you flew in a tailwheel airplane.
Well, that happened back in working with gliders. I started towing sailplanes. It was actually a Super Cub, and which is still one of my favorite airplanes of the light aircraft series. And so I was flying the Super Cub, towing gliders, and the whole thing again was, building time and experience in that field. And I still fly sailplanes occasionally now, and looking forward to getting back into it.
That's fantastic. Let's jump back to Arnold Palmer really quick. You obviously flew a lot for Mr. Palmer. And what were some of your favorite memories flying the airplanes with him?
Probably the most fun part of flying with the boss was he really was a great pilot. He had so much hand-eye coordination, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, you and Sarah being pilots yourself. And so it made my job very easy. He was normally in the left seat flying, and I was there programming and doing all the odds and ends of the work. And but he held up his side very, very well and could really fly, the aircraft exceptionally. And it goes back to, hand-eye coordination, feel of the aircraft. And so that made my job really fun. And, it was something that we both enjoyed doing. It's sort of a release for him and part of my job.
Sure. So the first time you laid eyes on a Mustang to go fly it, what was that experience like? You have 10,000 hours in Mustangs now, but tell us about that first flight and introduction to the Mustang.
Well, it's interesting because, as I said, I had always had the passion for the Mustang. And I watched Bob Hoover fly an airplane actually out of the Florida area, and began to realize, what he was doing and his talents. And it sort of planted the seed. As I said earlier, there are 5 boys in the family. 4 of us work together all the time. But 2 of the twin brothers had just come out of the Air Force and started building up a P-40 and a P-51 Mustang for a client. And a guy named Scott Smith. And after that airplane was built, I had a chance to fly with him in it, in the back seat of a D model. Well, of course, that just, helped plant the seed. And then the real turn, that was like the early 70s. In the mid-70s, Gordon Plaskett actually had a TF Mustang, just like Crazy Horse here. And I had a chance to go fly front seat in that and, in a sense, get checked out in it. So that was my real first flying of the P-51 was with Gordon Plaskett, as I said, in the mid-70s. And
Okay.
it was monumental to me. It was like somebody put a big sign up and said, hey, this is what you're supposed to do in life, and go pick it out, sign God. And, so that whole thing became a passion. And I'd always wanted to be a fighter pilot. I mean, that was my dream growing up as a kid. But I also knew that I didn't have quite 20/20 vision. So it was always corrected, and there was no way to get around that at that point in time with the military. So it sort of dashed my career plans, you might say. And so the Mustang became my backdoor approach. And the best part is, here I am today, many, many years later, and I'm still getting to fly fighters. And that's very, very special.
And you get to fly with a lot of fighter pilots as well, current guys, checking them out in the Mustang, which is great.
It really is. One of the things we got started with the P-51 was up in the Naval Test Pilot School, like in the 1987. And it's ironic because here you have all these, young fighter pilots flying F-18 Hornets and P-38 Talons and all of that, but all they want to do is fly the Mustang. And, ironic how it goes full circle that, sometimes where you want to go isn't any more special than where you are. And, so I've been blessed to be able to fly the Mustang. This is coming up with Stallion 51, 33 years now, and something I still enjoy doing.
That's fantastic. And for those that might have joined late, we're talking with Lee Lauderback, clearly the Mustang master with over 10,000 hours in the airplane. Lee, you just hit on Stallion 51 a bit, and we're about to the part in your story where you founded Stallion 51 and really started that operation with you and a couple of your brothers. Tell us about how Stallion 51 came about.
Well, it actually came about with a former Navy pilot, Doug Schultz. And Doug was very insightful, and his whole thing was we could actually get a military contract if we had a specific type of tailwheel, high-powered airplane, and it read P-51 Mustang. Of course, that sparked my interest immediately. And so in jest, we told the bank we had a military contract. We told the military we had a P-51 Mustang, the TF dual cockpit, dual control airplane. And they almost like passed in the middle of the night. And we were up in Pax River doing Navy Test Pilot School qualitative evaluation work, which ironically we still do some of that today, 30 years later.
Wow. So you're operating multiple Mustangs today, Horse 1, Horse 2, and another Mustang behind you. How many hours do you fly the Mustang a year, and how many hours do your airplanes fly a year?
Well, it varies year to year, and I can't say this year is going to be a high time year. But, in the past, I was flying sometimes 600-700 hours a year of the P-51, and I'm down now to 150-200 hours. Kyle, I've got one of the best team of people and pilots you could ever imagine to make this happen and make it happen safely. And I'm now giving those guys the lion's share of the work. And as one of my guys said who just took off, he said, I'm happy to go out there because I'm just about to reach 1,000 hours in the Mustang. And to be honest with you, I'm happy to allow them to do that and share the experience. The other side is the FAA, through the Special Examiner Program, made me an examiner. And as you're aware, you can't train people and examine them from the standards. So I sort of took that role, but my guys do the lion's share of instructing now, and then I do all the check pilot work and standardization work for the company.
So you have a couple of very special guys working for you. Tell us about the work that your brothers do for the operation.
Well, with 5 boys in the family, 2 are identical twins. So the standard joke around is here, I break them, they fix them. One of my younger brothers, Johnny 5, sells them. And to be honest with you, without their support, Kyle, you could not operate the Mustang the way that we do safely. And obviously safety is the key. And so they are instrumental in keeping us flying and keeping us safe and operating the airplane, with few deficiencies, or when something's broken, getting it fixed quickly and correctly. And the Mustang is sort of like a specialty car. If you take your Ferrari into the Chevrolet dealer, it ain't going to go very well. So they really keep us going. And it's been, as I said, instrumental in our operation and the safety. Everybody says, how many times have you had problems in the Mustang? Very few, and it's because of those guys.
So, Lee, you brought up safety, and that was the whole reason that you founded Stallion 51, or a big reason why you founded Stallion 51. Tell us about how your training program really came about and how you built that program for the Mustang.
Well, Kyle, it really became an outreach of the Naval Test Pilot School program where we and working with those guys, learned a lot about the P-51 Mustang that really isn't in the books. And with that knowledge base of what we were learning to bring it to the civilian world, because in the 80s, the early 80s, the Mustang did not have a very good safety record. And it was all because of the lack of proper training. It's a high-performance, propeller-driven fighter. I mean, it was designed as a military fighter, not as a airplane you just go out and jump in and go fly like every other airplane. So we took the military approach to our checkout training program, taking what we learned, which was a lot, and now taking that knowledge base and distributing it out into the industry. And that is still the syllabus that we use today. It wouldn't be any different if you went to the military and get checked out in an airplane. It's a demanding syllabus, but the point is when you finish, you graduate from our program, you can go out and fly the Mustang and do very well. And very fortunately, we've had a very good safety record with our graduates. And I would like to think that, our team and myself have made a difference in the safety record of the P-51 Mustang and other high-performance propeller-driven fighters.
There's no doubt about that. And you've led the way for so many people to transition into the Mustang. For our viewers today, Lee, tell us what it's like when somebody calls up Stallion 51 and says, hey, I've got a lot of T6 time, or I have a lot of other time in tailwheel airplanes. I'd love to do the Mustang transition course. Do you send them materials in advance, a little self-study, and then they come down for a course like they would maybe when transitioning into a jet? Or how does the course actually work to transition into the Mustang?
Well, we take every student coming in as an individual with their background, and whether it be military aviation or civilian airline or general aviation, and take them as an individual. The syllabus remains the same, but as we can jump forward, we do. So there isn't a set timeline through the program, but we started at a foundation level, and normally the first flight is in the rear cockpit, and then transition them to the front, and then just keep as a building block approach, advancing forward into the advanced maneuvering profiles. So we've had quite a few students come through the program. Not everybody graduates. You can't buy that graduation patch. You have to earn it. But when you earn it, it's very, very special. And last year, we just graduated our 200th graduate of the program. And it's a special time. We number the patches. We keep track of it. And it's something that, as I said, we've enjoyed watching our students go out into the field. I've worked with so many of the guys in the Mustang, and our team has, and a lot of the guys that are flying the airplane, even in the airshow world today.
So some of the folks watching might not know the differences between the TF Mustangs that you fly at Stallion 51 and the normal A, B, C, D model Mustangs, Ks, and other models. What is the difference between the TF and being able to instruct in it from the front and back cockpit and the other Mustangs that maybe flew during the war?
Well, Kyle, the TF is a derivation of the D model. In other words, they never built production TF P-51s as a trainer. They lost many, many aircraft in training where the transition people from the Stearman to the T6, North American T6, to the Mustang. But it wasn't a very good record. And later in the years of the military, when they had time, they decided North American contracted Timco to convert 10 airplanes. And what they did is they took an 85-gallon fuel cell out of the back of the D model, stock fighter. They elongated the canopy. They tracked the canopy almost twice as far back as the D model, and then put in dual controls. And honestly, it becomes an ideal training platform. And fortunately, we've been able to apply that in the civilian world. The back seat is not a compromise. Virtually half my time in the P-51 is in the back seat instructing. So it doesn't matter to me front seat, back seat, but I guess it does. I guess front seat's my favorite.
But you're flying a Mustang, Lee. What could be better in the world?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, Kyle. It's very, very special. I'm truly blessed to get to fly the Mustang, and still today get to go fly it. And it's a special airplane. It's got so much history to it. Some of the icons of the world, the Bob Hoovers and the Bud Andersons and the Robin Olds, and I've had a chance to fly those guys, and I requalified, Robin Olds to fly the Mustang, and so many of the other guys, and flown with Hoover quite a bit. Some of my favorite stories are, just having a chance to share the P-51 with those guys once again. And, it's a special, very, very special to me.
So tell us about Bob Hoover. We know you're a super smooth pilot, but Bob flying Old Yeller, the yellow Mustang, I mean, how iconic is that? Tell us about what it's like to fly with Bob Hoover.
Well, as I said, I sort of grew up watching Bob fly the P-51 Mustang, and I got to know him even better through some of the contacts with Arnold Palmer, and flew as Shrike Commander, actually ferried the airplane, knew Jimmy Driscoll really well, and sort of would hang around those guys quite a bit. And my brothers would actually do some maintenance on Old Yeller. And so one of the classics is this was in Reno when Bob had the problem with his medical certificate stuff. And he was flying safety pilot at Reno, and he called one day and said, "Hey, Lee, what are you doing next week?" And I said, "Not much. What's up?" And he said, "We get a TF. Would you just sort of fly in the back seat so we can go fly safety pilot?" And I went, "Well, yes." And that's what we did. We brought in an airplane, and it was a TF that belonged to one of my other students, and Scat 7. And so this was like 2 days before Reno, and we're going to go fly the airplane because Bob had never flown that specific TF. And as you know, he's just such a gentleman and a sense of humor. And so we're strapped on the airplane. I'm strapped in the backside. We take off, and Bob says, "The airplane's got a right ox tank, right, Lee?" I said, "Yeah, it does." And he said, "I wonder how much gas is over there." And I said, "Let's go find out." So he changes over to the right ox tank, and we're flying along, and Bob can't fly straight level. And we're always up to something. So we're going up for a loop. And about halfway up in the loop, the engine just quits. I mean, just quit dead. And I'm Bob Hoover in front going, "Why, Lee, I think the engine just quit." I'm in the back going, "Well, yeah, I think it did. But who would I rather be with than anybody in the world if the engine just quit in a P-51 Mustang? R.A. Bob Hoover." And so he switches tanks, and it relights, and we laugh and we giggle. And about 3 minutes later, he says, "Let's see if there's any more gas over there." and then, the same reason. Just what a delightful gentleman to share the P-51 Mustang and to learn from him. I mean, we talked many, many hours about flying the Mustang, spinning the Mustang, a lot of the work we were doing for the Naval Test Pilot School. And one of the things, Kyle, that he told me that sticks to today so strongly, that little things on a laminar flow airfoil make a big difference. And we've been doing some flight test work and still learning the P-51 to be able to teach people about it. And we've tufted the wings and done all kinds of things. And he is just so right. And I can hear his words today that little things make a big difference.
I mean, he is such a special person for America and for aviation, and was a master of the flight controls. Lee, I've been saying it all this interview that you're a master of the Mustang, but what is the hardest thing to master in the airplane?
Well, Kyle, as I was saying before, it was designed as a military fighter, so it doesn't have like angle of attack indicators like today's airplanes would, or stall warning systems. So I think the most difficult thing to learn about the Mustang are the little subtle feels. In a sense, we call it, speaking the Mustang language. We even have a patch, Mustang spoken here. And it really speaks volumes because it's a feel airplane. And that's what Bob did so well with every airplane. He could feel the nuances. And it takes time to develop that. But the airplane does indeed talk to you. Little rumble, little sounds, little feels, all were things that tell you where the airplane is within the envelope. And as you know, we work to the edge of the envelope quite a bit because that's where the Mustang has historically caused issues for, people. And so if you know where the boundaries are and you feel the boundaries and you recognize the boundaries and you can stay on this side, then safety is enhanced.
So tell us about, preparing for each flight. It's obviously a very mental airplane. It's one that you have to be very respectful of, as you've talked about today. But tell us how you brief and prepare for each mission you got into the P-51.
Well, Kyle, I look at every flight as resetting the clock. It's almost the Groundhog movie that every day you get up and you get a little bit further on. But every day I get up, I get to fly the Mustang today, and I look at it as a new event. Not that I flew the Mustang yesterday or I've got this down, but what is specific about flying the airplane today? So every flight we do out of here is briefed. Virtually nothing goes out without brief, track, followed, and every flight is debriefed. So the briefing sets the mindset of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, why you're going to do it. And then the debrief is the learning side of that. And it allows me to come out with a fresh start and then learn something new about the Mustang when it's all finished. That's the goal. And sometimes it's like, let's not do that again. Or, wow, this is something new. And I really, really enjoy learning more about the P-51. And one of the things that I've been working with or on and going to continue is the torque roll on takeoff. And my goal is to do a talk as Society of Experimental Test Pilots, which I'm a member of, and sort of dispel some of the rumors about that and some of the dynamics of exactly what's going on with the Mustang.
So folks that have seen you fly around the airshow circuit, maybe at Sun and Fun or maybe Jacksonville, watch you do that roll-on takeoff. And it's quite the spectacular sight. The first time I saw it was at the Gathering of Mustangs and Legends in 2007 in Columbus. But Lee, walk us through that maneuver from when you bring the Merlin up to power, release the brakes, until you go over the top for the roll-on takeoff. Walk us through that maneuver.
Well, Kyle, it's one of the maneuvers that you don't have a lot of margin with. And so it's always thinking, okay, specifically today under these circumstances, for example, if the wing is wet, I won't roll the airplane on takeoff because back to the Bob Hoover words, little things make a big difference, and moisture and laminar flow can do that. So setting the circumstances, looking at the airshow site, making sure it can be done safely within the parameters of the box. So it's all analyzation first and getting that set up in your mind. The other is just going to work. And once I release the brakes, it sort of all goes to autopilot in a sense that the actions, the reactions, the feel, when to pitch, when to roll the airplane are key to making that work. And then the buffer of, okay, let's not cut any margins here, giving yourself most things for an engine failure. And so I always look at it as a tribute to Bob Hoover because that's one of the things that stuck in my mind. And so in a sense, you might say, hey, Bob's riding through there and going to grade this, so don't screw it up.
How awesome is that? So you've flown the Mustang in the flight test world. You've instructed the Mustang. You do airshow flying in it. What is your favorite thing to do with the P-51?
Well, actually, airshow demo work. And you and I were talking earlier. Dennis had me set up to fly on July 21st at Oshkosh. And I'm thinking to myself, how special is that? Because there's going to be a birthday. And how many people get to go fly a P-51 Mustang at Oshkosh on their 70th birthday. And I'm going, yeah, that'll work. And COVID's up, and so there's always next year though, and I'm really looking forward to it. But that world of bringing the airplane down to the people and letting them see the sights and the sounds of the P-51 Mustang. And the demo was set up. It's not about me or what I do. It's about the P-51 Mustang, the tribute to the guys that flew this airplane in combat and made a whole difference of democracy and what we enjoy today. It's a tribute to those people, the designers, the fighter pilots, and the crew chiefs, and all wrapped around a very, very special airplane.
So we've talked all day long in this interview about the Mustang, but if you had to pick a second favorite, because we know the Mustang is your favorite, Lee, what is your second favorite Warbird?
This is going to be a shock to some people, but it's actually the F-8F Bearcat. I want to say the Bearcat, as much as I love the Mustang, is the premier propeller-driven fighter. If we're going to go up and do point defense, air combat, one-on-one turning kind of fight, which is what it was designed to do, the Bearcat's going to be superior. Now, with that said, if we're going to go fly 300 miles and now do air combat, different story. That's where the Mustang is what it was designed to do. It does so well. But number two would be F-8F Bearcat with a close second to the F-86.
Absolutely. Well, Lee, we're out of time. I want to thank you so much for spending 30 minutes with us, talking about flying the Mustang and, from the cockpit of the airplane. How awesome is that?
Well, it's special. This airplane is very special because this is the original Crazy Horse airplane, which I've got most of my time. And people say, what's your favorite P-51? I'm sitting in my office and this is the airplane.
Lee, you have a special opportunity, sir. What's next? I guess to wrap it up, what's next for Stallion 51?
Well, getting back to normal and, continuing the operation. And I'm looking forward already of flying Oshkosh in 2021. And that, in a sense, it'll even make it more special. God willing, enough Mustang parts, I'll be there. And I have a chance to visit.
Well, we can't wait to see you roll the Mustang on takeoff off of 1836 in front of the great crowd in 21. It's going to be a great show. And Lee, I thank you again for spending the time with us.
Well, my pleasure. And you take care, and we'll see you up there.
Same to you, Lee. And for everybody watching, for more great content like this, stay tuned to EAAtogether.org and EA's YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.